Now we don't have to add any styling at all if you want to continue to use the default styling that is in your sidebars. Right? If we put a pages widget over here as well, let's go back over to widgets and let's grab pages again. Put it there. And refresh it. You can see, these are pretty much the same. I guess this does have a slightly different styling. But having said that, the text style is the same. It's the same size. The heading sizes are the same. They're the same style. So you don't actually have to do any styling to these at all if you don't want to. However, the bulk of the settings in here allow you to create styles. So once you place your widget columns in there, you can specify widths, you can specify margins, heading style, text style, background style, and then you can specify those for the columns as well. So the first set covers the block as a whole. I think I'm going to show you what I mean by block as a whole while we're at this. Okay, let's see. Let's bring that down. Okay, so if we inspect the element, that right there is our content block, right? That content block has two widget columns in it, widget column 1 and a widget column 2, right? And that's the content block. Now we can specify padding and margins around that content block. We can specify background colors, background images. We can do anything we want with those. And in fact, I'm going to do that. Actually, we'll go ahead and put colored background, say, behind each of these. And let's just go ahead and use that color, whatever that color is. Okay. So we'll copy that color. And then we'll come back over to our settings. And what we're going to do is under widget column background style, because we want this to apply to the columns as opposed to the overall background. So for the widget column background style, we're going to say background color is this, that background color. Now we can also use background images in exactly the same way that we use the background images for the full width framework areas. We can do exactly the same thing with background images for these widget areas. But I'm just going to stick with colors for the moment. If we hit save to that, we'll come back over here and we refresh it. Now we've got blue. Now what we really want to do is we want to move the text away from the edges, and we want to get some space in between, and then we want these two blue colors to go, the full height. And so the way we do that is by, first thing we want to do, say, is specify a height for our widget column. So you would do that under widget block dimensions, and we're just going to give it a height of, say, 250 pixels. Now if we refresh that, I think now you can see, let's give it 300 pixels, but you can see now that the blue color extends all the way to the bottom. Once we specify a fixed height, then we can make sure that both of those things, that all of the widgets display at the same height. So let's just say, let's make it 350 just for grins. Okay. So then the next thing we want to do is add margin around these columns. And so under widget column margins, what we really want is, say, a left margin. And if we got left margin, let's say of 24 pixels, and hit save, that should separate our pieces. So there we go. Now they are separated from each other by 24 pixels. Now, it's not really absolutely obvious that this is going on here, but what's happened is 24 pixels have happened here as well, and maybe you don't want that. Maybe you want this to go back to its regular lineup and you just want the 24 pixels here. In that case, what you would do is come down here to your widget column 1 settings, that's your first setting, and just put 0 in there. You're going to adjust the left margin by making it 0. What we did here was we made the typical left margin 24 pixels, and the left margin of column 1 we made 0 pixels. So now if we hit save to this, come over and refresh that, now these things are equal width, and this goes back to lining up with the text. Now the next thing we want to do is pull this stuff away from the edges. And so we'll come down to padding. That's where you address this question, under padding. And so under our top padding, let's give that 20 pixels. And under bottom padding, well, in fact, let's give it 20 pixels all the way around. So we've got a typical 20 pixel padding all the way around that thing. Come back over and take a look at it. Okay, so maybe we don't want a 20 pixel top padding, but you can see what it does is it pulls everything else away. So we can come back over here and just dump that top padding. Just delete that. Hit save. Now, you may notice that this is a bunch of trial and error, and that's exactly what it is. I mean, very much like using CSS or editing CSS. There's plenty of trial and error in this, and so you'll end up going back and forth trying to, decide which way you like it. But this is the process, right? The process is finding those, experimenting with settings to get it to look the way you want. Now there's one other thing I want to do here before I go on to one last question here, and that is I want to show you what it looks like when you use a single shortcode. I mean a single widget block. Because what you can do, well, in fact, let's just do that. Let's edit this page. I think that's probably this page right here, isn't it? Okay, we've got widget block 1 here. I'm going to come up to the top of this and put widget block 2 right there, the very top, and hit update. Oh, and then this is that custom template. I don't want custom template. I want no sidebars template for this. Okay, so let's take a look at what that looks like now. Okay, so now this has, and now we probably do want to do some bottom margin for this. Well, we're going to ignore that part for right now.